I rushed into the burning building to save my boyfriend, but he locked me inside instead. After I was disfigured, my parents disliked me and adopted a daughter. The fake daughter kidnapped me to a mountain village, and I got pregnant 4 times in 3 years. I pretended to be meek and obedient, looking for a chance to escape and go home. The fake daughter mocked me while holding my boyfriend's hand, and my parents were distant and indifferent. In the end, I died in a car accident because the fake daughter urgently needed a heart. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day of the fire. I still rushed over without hesitation. Before my boyfriend could run out, I locked him inside instead. Help, help. I opened my eyes suddenly and was immediately choked by the thick smoke, coughing uncontrollably. In front of me was a raging fire. I glanced at the princess dress on me and narrowed my eyes. Was I back to when I was 7 years old? Stephen's screams were still echoing in my ears. In my previous life, when I heard his cries, I rushed over without hesitation. I stumbled over, just wanting to pull him out. I was really scared myself, but after I pulled him out, he was so anxious that he closed the door and ran away by himself. He left me to be engulfed by the sea of fire, looking at the flames filling the sky. An inexplicable excitement welled up in my heart, and a sense of pleasure crawled up my throat. Stephen. The gears of fate have turned back again. I stood up and rushed over without hesitation. Stephen's figure was faintly visible in the fire. Just before he was about to rush out, bang, I kicked the hot iron door shut. This door would lock automatically when it closed. He couldn't get out. Why is the door closed? Stephen cried and roared, his voice hoarse and terrifying. Susan, are you there? Open the door. Save me. His voice grew weaker and weaker, and he coughed even harder. I looked at the tightly closed door in front of me, as if I could see him just on the other side of the door. I grinned and said in a crying voice, "Don't worry, I'll find someone to save you." When both sets of parents rushed over, I curled up in the corner where the fire couldn't reach. Shivering, my mother rushed up to me. Susan, she hugged me tightly in her arms. "Are you okay, baby? Let Mom take a look." My face was lifted up by a pair of soft hands. These were the hands that once brought me warmth, but also the hands that cost me my life. I instinctively frowned and avoided. She just thought I was scared. Seeing my tattered princess dress burned by the flames and my dirty face, tears streamed down her face. "It's Mom who didn't protect you well," she cried, and her hands carefully touched my face. I sneered in my heart. The Lincolns were extreme perfectionists. Their most satisfying work was me. They would be happy when they heard others praise me. Then they would bring everything I casually mentioned in front of me. After I was disfigured in the fire, their love also came to an end. They looked at me as if I were a mouse. After confirming that my face was intact, my mother quickly picked me up and fled the fire. I shrank on her shoulder and watched as a group of people tried their best to break open the iron door. Stephen was unconscious when he was rescued, covered in blood. He was sent to the hospital. I was taken home by my parents. "Thank goodness you're okay. Otherwise, how could I live?" My mother cried again. People who didn't know might think she was really worried about me. All she was worried about was this face. My father also let out a sigh of relief. They didn't see the flash of viciousness in my eyes. After that day, I seemed to be scared out of my wits. I never laughed again and didn't like to be noisy. My parents tried every means to coax me, but they couldn't make me smile even a little. They arranged a psychologist for me. I cooperated throughout the process. Finally, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic sequelae. Since then, my parents have always smiled and spoken softly when facing me. I thought that even if I wanted the moon in the sky, they would find a way to bring me a handful of soil from the moon. But I still didn't smile. My parents were worried. "Baby, is there anything you want?" my mother asked me softly as she hugged me. My father also leaned over. "As long as you want it, Dad will do everything possible to bring it in front of you." I lowered my eyes, hiding the coldness in my eyes. Yes, they were such people. Less than a year after I escaped back in my previous life, their adopted daughter was diagnosed with a heart disease. That girl pointed at me and said she wanted to have my heart transplanted. So they personally arranged a car accident for me. They really did go to great lengths. I raised my hand and pointed at the TV. A TV drama was playing on the TV. "I want her," I said. My father waved his hand. "Find that actress for the young lady." I shook my head. He raised his hand to stop. Then he looked at me again. "So what does the baby want?" "Dad didn't understand what you meant." I blinked innocently. "I want a maid." The actress I just pointed at played the role of a maid in the TV drama. After hearing this, my parents looked at each other. This was a bit difficult. This was a democratic and free society, and where could they find a maid? If it was someone who could play with me, they had to be around 7 or 8 years old. Hiring child labor was even more illegal. Seeing their embarrassed look, I pretended to be sad and lowered my head. It's okay if you can't. My father was so anxious that he paced around the living room. My mother grabbed my little hand. Of course it's possible. You can have whatever you want. I knew they would definitely come up with a solution. Soon, my father tapped his index finger in the air. I've got it. The orphanage. As my parents started a detailed discussion, I smiled silently. That's right, just like this. My dear mom and dad, I've dug the pit for you. Since you love me so much, you will definitely jump in obediently, right? My parents took me to visit orphanages in the city. We looked at hundreds of children. I was dissatisfied with each of them, because none of them was her. My parents were also dissatisfied. As extreme perfectionists, even when they brought a pet home, it had to be the most beautiful one. After a month, we found nothing. That also meant that in my previous life, my parents must have spent a lot of effort to find an adopted daughter who could satisfy them. We searched from within the province to outside the province. Finally, in the south, more than 2,000 kilometers away, we found a beautiful girl. As soon as the director heard my parents' request, he immediately let a girl out. This is Diana. Her skin was delicate and white, and her baby fat made her look cute and well-behaved. When she saw my parents, the girl's eyes turned red. My mother frowned. She's pretty, but she cries too much. We can't take her. After all, she was going to be my maid, and she couldn't be too petty. My father also nodded repeatedly. Hearing this, the girl pursed her lips and held back her tears with great effort. I don't cry easily. I'm just too happy, Mom and Dad. My name is Diana. After saying that, she pinched the hem of her skirt with her little hand and bowed to my parents, just like a little lady. My parents frowned at the same time. My mother said in a dissatisfied tone, "What are you calling us for? Who are your mom and dad?" Since the fire, I hadn't called them that. They were looking forward to my calling them, and they didn't want others to call them like that. Diana's expression froze, and her wide eyes were filled with disbelief. "What are you talking about? Aren't you here to adopt me?" My father looked at the director and said indifferently, "Is this child suffering from some kind of delusion?" The director was a bit embarrassed. "Well, she's not usually like this." Then my mother said, "It's not us who want to adopt a child, it's Bob." Bob was our family's driver. Diana's small body shook violently. How could this be? This is not right. It's not like this. Why? She was still muttering to herself when Bob walked in from the door. Seeing Diana's reluctant expression, he wasn't happy either. He was 30 years old this year, with a wife and both a son and a daughter. He originally didn't want to adopt a child. However, my father offered a high price, as long as he adopted a daughter in his and his wife's name. His annual salary would be increased by $200,000, roughly speaking. As a driver, his annual salary would be close to $400,000, so the tears flowed from the corners of his mouth, and he agreed without much backbone. It seemed that thinking of the money made Bob calm down. "Yes, I want to adopt a child." The director asked Diana, "Diana, do you agree?" She clenched the hem of her skirt tightly, and her whole body was visibly shaking. It was a bit strange. Did she also have the memories of the previous life? With this question in mind, I slowly walked out from behind my mother, stepping on my pink little leather shoes. Diana's gaze fixed on my face, and she blurted out, "Who are you?" My mother hugged me like a hen protecting her chicks. "This is the daughter of our Lincoln family. Watch your words." Diana was greatly shocked. "It's impossible. You're not." In her memory, I was a disfigured ugly person, the kind that she could bully at will. But she didn't know that the balance of fate had completely tilted towards me. "If she's not, are you?" My mother was angry. "If you're so rude again, we won't consider adopting you." "Sorry." She lowered her head in a panic, looking pitiful. Of course she wouldn't give up, even if she became Bob's adopted daughter now. As long as there was a chance to get close to my parents, it was good. I pretended to be scared by Diana and buried my face in my mother's neck. The smile at the corner of my mouth couldn't be suppressed. Here was another fool who would jump into the pit as soon as she saw it. My parents and Bob were going through the adoption procedures, and Diana and I went back to the car first. As soon as we got in the car, her well-behaved appearance disappeared completely. "Susan, Why aren't you disfigured yet? It wasn't strange that she asked this. When my parents adopted her in the previous life, I was already disfigured. You look so pretty. I lifted my eyelids and casually scanned her. You must have spent a lot of effort on dressing up, right? She was wearing a clean little dress and had 2 cute braids. She was just waiting for my parents to adopt her. Too bad, all your efforts were in vain. They don't love you anymore. So you also have the memories of the past. She jumped up and down. Susan, it was you who made me Bob's adopted daughter, wasn't it? I grinned. You guessed wrong, with me around. They won't adopt other children. They just spent the money to let Bob bring you back to meet my request. What do you mean? She was so angry that her face turned red. I glanced at the figures of the people approaching outside the window, lowered my head, and sat obediently, turning back into the silent girl again. She pounced on me. Don't play dead. The car door opened, and my mother saw her waving her hands at me. She grabbed her collar. David, if you dare to bully my daughter, I'll throw you out and let you be hit by a car and die. She would really do that. Diana knew that, because that was how I ended up in my previous life. She pursed her lips, looking a bit wronged. My name is Diana. My mother expressionlessly dragged her to the last row. Who cares what your name is? Then she hugged me in her arms and said in an extremely gentle tone, Baby, you must be scared, right? Don't be afraid. Mom is here. I tilted my head and rubbed against her shoulder. It was a reward for her. Her eyes lit up, and she looked at my father. Honey, look, it was right to find a maid for the baby. My father nodded with satisfaction. Diana, sitting in the back row, turned pale. What maid? What are you talking about? No one answered her. When we got home, Bob drove away, and Diana stayed, out of instinct from her previous life. She walked towards the upstairs. My mother grabbed her. Where are you going? Your room is here. She was arranged in the nanny's room, that night. She buried herself in the quilt and cried loudly. I leaned against her door, holding a teddy bear, and gradually smiled. Her crying sounded really nice. The next day, I sat at the dining table like a little princess. Diana was ordered to go to the kitchen and bring me breakfast. Watching her struggling to stand on tiptoe to put the breakfast on the dining table, I raised my hand and deliberately knocked it over. It all spilled on her. Ah, she let out a scream. What's wrong? What's wrong? My mother heard the sound and rushed downstairs. Seeing the mess on the floor, she quickly ran over and hugged me. After confirming that I was unharmed, she looked at Diana coldly. Why are you so clumsy? If you hurt Susan, I'll cut off one of your hands. I was a flawless work of art in their eyes. Of course, I wasn't allowed to get the slightest injury. The nanny who combed my hair wasn't allowed to make me lose more than 10 hairs a day. Otherwise, they would all be fired. Tears rolled down Diana's face. Mom, why are you treating me like this? I'm also your child. My mother looked at her with disgust and then turned to coax me. Susan, she's not very smart. How about Mom finding you a different maid? I shook my head. No, I want her. It had to be her. If it was someone else, it would be boring. It had been 3 months since the fire. Mr. and Mrs. Smith brought Stephen to our house. He kept being shy and hiding behind Mr. and Mrs. Smith, not daring to come out. Mrs. Smith looked at me with red eyes. Susan, can you tell Auntie, why did the door suddenly close? When the fire was mentioned, I was terribly scared and shrank into my mother's arms. My mother quickly hugged me. My father looked at them unhappily. What kind of question is this? The psychologist said Susan has post-traumatic stress. Don't mention the fire to her anymore. Mrs. Smith burst into tears. Stephen said that when he was about to run out, the door was closed. We just want to ask again if Susan saw who closed the door. No. I raised my head from my mother's arms, revealing a pair of innocent eyes. The wind was very strong. I went over as soon as I saw the fire, but I was too slow. My father rubbed my head. It's okay, baby, you don't have to blame yourself. Then he looked at Mr. and Mrs. Smith again. I know you care about Stephen, but Susan's situation is already very bad. The police have also investigated. There are no fingerprints on the door, and there are no traces of a third person. The door is so light. If there was really a strong wind, it could have closed by itself. In fact, there was no wind that day, not at all, but there were no surveillance cameras there either. When I was locked inside by Stephen in my previous life, he said it was the wind that blew the door shut. Everyone believed him. Great. He even provided me with this method. If anyone was to blame, it could only be himself for being meddlesome and liking to play with fire. Diana came out. Since there were guests, She didn't have to do any work. When she saw Mr. and Mrs. Smith, her eyes lit up. She immediately ran up to them. "Hello, Uncle and Auntie." Mr. and Mrs. Smith looked puzzled. "Who is this?" My mother smiled faintly. "She's Bob's adopted daughter. She came to play with Susan." Diana tried hard to maintain the smile on her face. When she saw the figure behind Mr. and Mrs. Smith, she rushed over immediately. "Come and play with us." As she spoke, she reached out and pulled Stephen out. Diana let out a scream and fell to the ground when she saw Stephen's face clearly. I almost laughed when I saw this scene, unexpectedly. The handsome and perfect fiancé in the previous life had become an ugly person with a pockmarked face. Stephen had recovered, but the burn scars couldn't be repaired. The burn area was as high as 90%, and there was no healthy skin available for transplantation. Isn't it? But I was like that in my previous life too. At least his parents still loved him. As for my parents, they heartlessly abandoned me. He was luckier than me. I'm really unwilling. What are you doing? My mother angrily scolded Diana, but in fact, at the moment she saw Stephen, she had also clearly frozen. The more she used to like Stephen, the more she disliked him now. Diana couldn't believe her eyes. How could this be? Then she turned to look at me. "Susan, it must be you who did this, right?" Slap. My mother angrily slapped her across the face. She covered her face, and tears streamed down. "You hit me." My mother couldn't bear it anymore. "Susan, do you really have to have her? Mom can't stand her anymore. Can't stand it already. I endured it for a long time in my previous life. You have to bear it obediently." I glanced at Stephen. In a trembling voice, I said, "Stephen is so ugly, I'm scared." Stephen froze in place instantly. It was as if he had been stripped naked and was being mocked. "Susan, don't be afraid of me, okay?" He seemed very sad. I was just returning the words he had said to me. Cough. My father coughed tactically. "Smith, let's cancel the marriage alliance between our two families. As you can see, Susan is afraid of him." Mr. Smith was very angry. "What do you mean? What about the cooperation between our two families?" The Lincoln and Smith families were preparing a project with huge interests. Without the binding of the marriage alliance, neither side could trust the other. Mr. Smith was a person who put interests first and definitely didn't want to give up this project. My father was also a bit in a dilemma, but he didn't want an ugly person as his son-in-law at all. I gently tugged at the sleeve of my mother's dress. When she looked at me, I raised my hand and pointed at Diana. My mother's eyes lit up. "You mean," she smiled and looked at Mr. and Mrs. Smith, "let Diana be in the marriage alliance?" Mrs. Smith was taken aback. "What are you talking about? She's just the adopted daughter of a driver." My father understood immediately. "So what? Bob has been driving for me for more than 10 years. He's the person I trust the most. As long as you have the marriage alliance, the cooperation will continue. Otherwise, let's terminate it." Mr. and Mrs. Smith agreed reluctantly in the end. On the one hand, it was for the sake of interests. On the other hand, Stephen had become like this. Even if he was rich, it wasn't certain that he could marry a very good woman in the future. Although Diana was just the adopted daughter of a driver, she was good-looking. Diana couldn't believe her ears. "No, I don't want to. I won't." Slap. My mother slapped her again. "Then go back to your orphanage." The marriage was still settled. Because Diana didn't want to go back to the orphanage, she still fantasized that if she stayed, she would find a way to get the glory and wealth of her previous life. Even if she married Stephen, she could still be a wealthy lady. Every day after that, she served me tea and water. She carried my school bag for me when we went to school and held an umbrella for me when it rained. She wouldn't attack me easily. She was waiting for an opportunity. When I was 10 years old, after being my maid for a full 3 years, she finally got her chance. On the way home from school, she said there were very delicious candies on a certain street and asked if I wanted to buy them. I agreed. She excitedly carried my school bag and walked over. I raised my hand and took the school bag back. "You go and queue up to buy them. I'll wait for you here." "Okay." A hint of cunning flashed in her eyes. Watching her back, I smiled slowly. I dodged into a corner, took out my phone, and edited a text message. Blue and white school uniform, high ponytail. There was only one person who fit this description. After sending it, I deleted the text message. When Diana finished buying the snacks and turned around but didn't see me, she smiled happily. She probably thought I had been kidnapped just like in the previous life, right? She was eating a cream puff, bouncing along with a light pace. A van stopped beside her. and a big hand pulled her into the van. The door closed. The van drove away. After witnessing this scene, I called my father with my phone. My father's voice was gentle. "Susan, what's wrong? Diana is missing," I said in a low voice. "I'm alone and scared." My father came to pick me up immediately. My school bag had a recording function, which they installed for my safety. After listening to the recording, it was clear that Diana had taken me to that alley. According to what I said, she disappeared after going to buy things. They reported it to the police, but they couldn't find her. In my previous life, Diana left me on that street and let me be kidnapped. Even though I was burned and became an ugly person, in that remote mountain village, there were still people who wanted me. They only spent $100. They poked several holes in a sack and put it over my head. Since then, I lived with the sack over my head. At first, I was their labor force, doing the heaviest work and eating the worst food. When I grew to 14 years old, those uncles and grandpas who couldn't marry a wife began to sneak into my room. I was covered in scars, so I didn't even take off my clothes. Just pulling down my pants was enough. In 3 years, I was pregnant 4 times. I always pretended to be meek and obedient before I found a chance to escape. Over the past 7 years, that van would often sell several girls to the village. The police had never caught them. I remembered their phone number, though, so, when Diana tried the same trick and hoped that I would be kidnapped, I was also planning to sell her. She was so beautiful. When she got to that mountain village, there must be more people who would like her. Right, Diana was abducted and sold. And the cooperation between the Lincoln and Smith families was put on hold. It was neither said to continue nor clearly said to be terminated. In the blink of an eye, 7 years passed. I had grown up, with excellent genetic inheritance and the efforts my parents put into me. I had an otherworldly temperament, and my face was flawless. I also had good grades. Since I was a child, I had a super strong memory. After acquired training, I almost had a photographic memory. I graduated from a prestigious university at the age of 16, and now I was already helping my father manage the company. My parents took me to various wealthy banquets at home and abroad. I was always the most eye-catching one. Most importantly, the crown prince of the capital's social circle, who was considered unreachable by everyone, was currently pursuing me enthusiastically. I swirled the wine glass in my hand and suddenly thought of Diana. I wondered how she was doing. As long as she didn't commit suicide, she must still be alive now. It was time to let her come back. I took the initiative to ask my father for the cooperation plan between the Lincoln and Smith families. Mr. Smith was getting old. He had also become greedier. As soon as he heard that there was still a chance for this cooperation, he came to me eagerly. I pushed the contract in front of him. For this project, the cooperation will continue, but all the work will be done by the Smith family. Upon hearing this, Mr. Smith was surprised. "Why, the Lincoln family has almost completed the transformation. This project is not suitable for the Lincoln family to do. I will only take the shares. I won't be short of a single cent in the places where I need to invest. As for how to do it, the Smith family can make the arrangements." It was like a pie falling from the sky, and Mr. Smith was still a bit hesitant. I sighed. "Uncle Smith, our two families have always been family friends for generations. What I said to Stephen when I was a child was really thoughtless, and I feel very guilty. This project was originally agreed to be carried out, and it will never be cancelled no matter what. Don't you trust me?" Only then did he feel at ease and happily agreed. 5 months later, an accident occurred in a newly developed project of the Smith family, and 8 people died. It was a shoddy project, and Mr. Smith was taken away for investigation. Looking at the news broadcast on my phone, I lay down on the bed with a smile. I laughed until tears came out. They're dead. They're all dead. It's great that they're dead. I heard that some fell from a high place and the steel directly pierced through their temples. Some had the foundation collapse and were crushed into a pulp. Just imagining that scene makes me feel, it must be extremely beautiful. How could I be so kind as to let Mr. Smith make money? I just knew his true nature. I invested in him, but I controlled the funds well. In order to control the cost, he was also reluctant to spend money from the Smith family, so he strictly controlled the cost and chose the worst materials for everything. In my previous life, there was also a shoddy project in the Smith family, but no one died. The 8 people who died in this life were all the ones I got to that place. I disguised an identity to recruit workers and specifically sent the news to the village head in the mountain village. $1,000 a day. Who could resist such a temptation? Dozens of people signed up in the village, and I only selected the 8 who had bullied me. Then I stuffed them into that construction site. I was laughing almost crazy. Those who bullied me in my previous life will not come to a good end in this life, and there are still 4 left. The police visited the place where the 8 people who died on the construction site were from. They found Diana, who had been abducted and sold. Then they sent her back. Her skin was dark, and her eyes were lifeless. Her arms were full of scars. As soon as she saw my parents, turbid tears streamed down her face. Mom and Dad, I'm finally back with you. Either she was still delusional, or she had gone crazy. The disgust on my parents' faces was obvious. They only took my hand and said, "Stay away from her, she's dirty, who knows if she has any diseases." I looked at Diana indifferently and didn't say a word. She shouted at me, "Susan, you framed me, you really deserve to die. Why isn't it you? It should have been you who was abducted." Slap. My mother slapped her across the face. Only after hitting her did she realize what she had done and hurried to wash her hands. So dirty. I looked directly into Diana's angry eyes and said coldly, "It seems you've really gone crazy. It wasn't pleasant there, was it? I'll forgive your rudeness this time. You'll die a bad death." She roared. "It's kind of funny, I already died a bad death in my previous life. In this life, it should be their turn, shouldn't it?" Did she forget? Diana was so crazy that Bob didn't want to recognize her. In the end, it was me who spoke up and kept her in the Lynn family. She still lived in that nanny's room. I thought Diana would make a big scene, but on the contrary, for a whole week, she was quieter than anyone else. She didn't do anything. This attitude inevitably caught my attention. A barking dog never bites. Who knows what she's planning now? I went about my business as usual, spending most of my time at work. Every day when I went to the company, there would definitely be a bouquet of flowers and some jewelry placed on my desk. I picked them up and threw them aside. Men are really an eyesore. However, this annoying man always pestered me and showed up in front of me. He would park his car at the company gate, lazily lean against the car body, and lower his head to play with his phone, with a cold expression. With a height of 1.9 meters and a luxury car worth millions, he was very eye-catching when he stood there. When he saw me come out, he put away his phone. "Miss Susan, would you do me the honor of having a meal with me?" I put on my sunglasses and said, "Thanks for the offer, but I decline." After that, I got into my own car. The corner of his mouth twitched, and he didn't force me. As soon as I got home, Diana came out of her room, dragging a suitcase, and rolled her eyes at me. "Where are you going?" I asked. "Does it concern you? I won't live under others' roofs anymore. I'm moving out now." I didn't stop her and watched her figure getting farther and farther away. Where could she go? As long as she was on this earth, she couldn't escape from my grasp. I went to bed early that night. I felt jolts and shakes in my sleep. When I opened my eyes, it was pitch black in front of me. My hands and feet were all tied up. Diana, you've really gone crazy." The car finally stopped in the suburbs. The trunk opened. Diana reached out and dragged me out. I landed on the ground and gritted my teeth in pain. Diana stepped on my stomach and looked down at me. "Susan, it's your time to die." She showed all her malice on her face. She bent down and was about to slap me left and right. I raised my legs and kicked her hard in the knees. I took the opportunity to roll under the car. "Susan, you bitch, get out here." Diana roared and kicked the car door hard. "Can't you crawl out by yourself?" It was a man's voice. I was very familiar with this voice. Stephen. Oh, she had joined hands with Stephen. It was as expected, but it was rather troublesome. I knew they had a guilty conscience, but I didn't expect them to take action so suddenly. Without being prepared, I was in great danger. Diana got down on the ground and tried to crawl under the car to pull me out. I curled up and, seizing the opportunity, kicked her hard in the face. Her nosebleed flowed profusely, but she didn't step back even half a step. She was determined to drag me out. "Susan, I must kill you with my own hands. My life is already ruined, and you won't have a good time either." But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't catch me. Instead, I kicked her several times. To be honest, she could really take a beating. Presumably, she had been beaten a lot in the village. If it weren't for my plan, she might not have found a way to escape. We got into a stalemate. Suddenly, my arm tightened, and then I was dragged out. I faced Stephen's horribly disfigured face directly, and my heart sank. He raised his hand and slapped me, then he kicked me hard in the abdomen. I rolled a couple of times, and cold sweat broke out on my forehead from the pain. Stephen's voice was sinister. Susan, it was you who made me disfigured. Diana added fuel to the fire. Believe me, in the last life, it was her who got disfigured, and she was also the one who was abducted and sold. Stephen raised his head, and his hoarse voice sounded very creepy. Why did you do this to me? We were childhood sweethearts. Weren't we? Why did you harm me? Am I ugly? He squatted down, grabbed my hair, and forced me to look up at him. Tell me, am I ugly? I sneered and said, Stephen, don't you have a clue in your mind about whether you're ugly or not? I'm telling you, you're very ugly, extremely ugly. I wasn't afraid of provoking him. Since they had the nerve to kidnap me, they must have decided to silence me. Anyway, I was doomed to suffer this. So why should I flatter them like a coward? Ugly, I'm ugly, right? Instead of getting angry, he laughed. I'll take you right here. After that, he pounced on me and kissed my neck randomly. Disgusting, really disgusting. I bit his ear hard and pulled it fiercely. Warm blood splashed all over my face. Stephen let out a scream and fell trembling to the side. I had torn off his ear with my own hands. Pa, I spat the ear aside. So dirty, disgusting. Diana was stunned. Susan, you're a lunatic. She rushed up. But a tall figure blocked her way first. With a lift of his long leg, Diana was kicked over. Then I fell into a strong embrace. It's okay now, he said softly, soothing me. I'm here. I wiped the blood on my face carelessly onto his expensive shirt. Jack, why are you here? I wanted to ask you to have supper. Your nanny found that you were missing, and after checking the surveillance, she saw that you were abducted, so I chased after you. I looked at him. Thank you for his courage to come after me without hesitation. You're welcome. Just promise to marry me, he said, reaching out to touch my swollen and red face. Who hit you? Just as he finished asking, Stephen somehow got up. I was roughly pulled over by him, and then a dagger was pressed against my neck. Get out of the way. His hand was shaking all the time. There was a sudden sting in my neck, and then warm liquid flowed down. Jack's pupils shrank violently, but he really didn't dare to move. He just stared at Stephen with a serious face. Ha ha ha, Diana burst into laughter. Susan, in the end, you're still going to die. Do you know how I lived for the past 7 years? I worked like a slave for others and gave birth to 5 children. All of this is your fault. I've always thought that as long as I managed to get out alive, I would definitely kill you. As she spoke, she kept laughing. Then, while laughing, she started crying. I was completely unmoved and looked at her indifferently. Who hasn't experienced those shitty things? Stephen leaned close to my ear and said, this is retribution. When you locked me in, you should have thought that this day would come. The pain in my neck was getting worse, and the blade was pressed deeper and deeper. I turned my eyes and saw a ray of light in the distance. Move aside, I said to Jack. Jack was obviously taken aback, but he obediently moved aside. Bang! Stephen's laughter stopped instantly. His head exploded, and blood spattered everywhere. Then he fell straight down. The police arrived. Since he was holding a weapon and had already hurt me, for my safety, after receiving the order, a sniper was arranged to shoot him. Diana was arrested. When she was handcuffed, she was still in a daze and shaking her head. It's impossible. How could this be? It should have been her who deserved to die. I was sent to the hospital. The cut on my neck was very deep, but fortunately, it didn't cut the main artery. After being stitched up, I was admitted to a high-class ward. Jack stayed by my side, with dark circles under his eyes. Do you really like me? I asked. He looked at me with a pained expression. Do you like me because I'm pretty? I asked again. Yes, I like your beauty, your intelligence, and your calmness. Susan, I want to make you smile. His voice was very soft, as if he was talking to himself. Smile? I never smile in front of others. Maybe he doesn't know that I can actually smile when I'm alone. I laughed like crazy when my parents learned that I had been kidnapped. They rushed back from abroad in a hurry. My mother looked at the wound on my neck and burst into tears. She repeatedly asked the doctor if there would be a scar. Only after learning that there wouldn't be did she feel relieved and held my hand. Susan, it's all right now. Diana has been sentenced. She won't be able to get out for 10 or 8 years. I had no expression on my face. Just 10 or 8 years. What kind of punishment is that? Diana's crimes can only be redeemed by death. I want to go home, I said. They took me home and took good care of me. On my 18th birthday, since I was still injured, there was no coming-of-age ceremony. However, Jack took the initiative to come to my house. Behind him, a group of bodyguards were holding gift boxes. "Happy birthday, Miss Susan." He's really persistent, I thought, but it didn't seem that annoying. My parents were extremely happy. Although the Lin family was a prominent family, compared with the James family, there was still a certain gap. If they could form an alliance with the James family, the Lin family would surely soar to great heights, but they didn't know that they could no longer control my life, because on my birthday, I had carefully prepared a gift for myself. "Susan, Mom and Dad have to go to the company. We'll celebrate your birthday with you tonight." My mother smiled gently. I looked at her and said, "Uncle Bob doesn't seem to be here." "It's okay, your dad can drive," my father said with a smile and nodded, telling me not to worry. I didn't say anything more and watched as he picked up the car key on the far left. After they left, Jack watched some cartoons with me for a while. "Do you like watching this?" "To keep my childlike innocence," I said. He placed all the gifts in front of me. Opened the gifts. There were exactly 18 gift boxes. I opened them slowly. It was obvious that he had prepared them with great care. "Do you like them?" he asked. Just as he finished speaking, the phone rang. The phone was placed on the table. The remark was, "Dad." My eyes flashed, and I raised the corners of my mouth, smiling at him for the first time. "Yes, I do. Happy birthday," I said to myself in my heart. Then I answered the call. "Your parents have had a car accident and are being treated in the Third People's Hospital. Please come as soon as possible." I was taken aback, and the phone fell to the ground. Jack was still immersed in my previous smile. Seeing this, he quickly asked, "What's wrong?" I turned to look at him, and tears streamed down my face. "My parents have had a car accident." Jack drove me to the hospital. At the door of the operating room, I signed one critical condition notice after another. After a full 3 hours, I swayed and almost fell down. Jack hugged me. "Sit down for a while, okay?" I nodded weakly. He felt sorry for me and held me even tighter. "Before the operation was over, the police came first. We've investigated and found that the car was tampered with, and this car is registered in your name. Susan, do you know what's going on?" I blinked slowly. It took me a while to understand their question. "What do you mean? Do you suspect me?" "This possibility cannot be ruled out." "Stop joking," Jack said to the police. "It can't be her. I was there when they went out." Mr. Lin picked up the car key himself. There were dozens of car keys. If she did it, how could she ensure that Mr. Lin would definitely choose that car? Could it be that she tampered with every car? Upon hearing this, the police nodded. "This possibility cannot be ruled out." Then they looked at me. "Miss Susan, can you let us check the other cars in your garage?" I lowered my eyes and said feebly, "Go ahead." The surgery was over. The results weren't very promising. My mother was paralyzed from the upper body down. She was doomed to spend the rest of her life in bed. My father was brain dead. There was almost no chance of him waking up. When I heard the news, I sobbed and trembled, leaning on Jack's shoulder. "Susan," not knowing how to comfort me, he just patted my back gently. "Stop crying, okay, let's go see them." But I wasn't crying, I was laughing. I was extremely happy. It didn't matter that they didn't die. They had doted on me all my life in this lifetime. Consider it a little redemption for what they did to me in my past life. I stopped laughing. When I looked up again, my eyes were empty. Since neither of my parents woke up, I arranged the best ward and the most professional caregivers for them. I stayed alone in the ward while Jack waited outside, looking at their sleeping faces. I twitched the corners of my mouth and smiled at them. "Dad, Mom, didn't you want to see me smile? Didn't you want to hear me call you? Well, here I am calling you. What a pity, you can neither hear nor see. It doesn't matter, I'll take care of you for the rest of your lives. You thought I was ugly, but I don't think the same of you." After leaving the hospital, Jack and I went to the police station. According to the investigation, there was nothing wrong with the other cars. Moreover, after a thorough investigation of the relationship between my parents and me, I had no motive for the crime. Jack and his bodyguards could testify that my father had picked up the car key himself. Just like that, I was perfectly cleared of suspicion. Finally, the police found 2 strands of hair in the accident car. After testing, they were Stephen's, but Stephen was already dead, so there was no way to verify the situation. However, he had kidnapped me and almost killed me. The police basically concluded that he was the one who tampered with the car. It was just unexpected that my parents had driven the car by accident. No one would know that I had yanked out the hair when Stephen kidnapped me, nor would they know that my father was left handed and had the habit of picking things up from the left. It was already very late. The police said I could go home. Suddenly, I asked, "Is Diana still in the detention center? Can I go see her?" Since Diana and I had grown up together, the police thought I was sentimental. Even though she had tried to kill me, they thought I was too kind for still wanting to visit her. Jack also frowned. "What's the point of seeing her? You can go back first." After a pause, he said, "Go ahead, I'll wait for you outside." I went in. I took a careful look around. There was no surveillance, and the police officer had also left. In this small space, it was just Diana and me. She glared at me fiercely. "What are you here for? To laugh at me?" I smiled faintly. "Diana, let me tell you a secret, one you don't know." "What? Actually, you're Steven's biological sister." "What are you talking nonsense about?" "I'm not talking nonsense. In my past life, I thought you looked a bit like Mrs. Smith. In this life, I secretly had a DNA test done." "It's true." I smiled at her. She was so shocked that she couldn't say a word. "You even married Steven in your past life, Diana. How did it feel to be with your brother?" She clenched her fists, shaking uncontrollably. "You're lying to me, aren't you?" "Stop spouting nonsense. It's impossible." I sighed. "Alas, it's a pity. Mr. Smith is in prison because of the shoddy project. Steven is dead. Although the Smith family isn't as prosperous as before, it's still quite wealthy. Roughly speaking, it's worth 40 to 50 million. A glimmer of hope flashed in her eyes. I couldn't help laughing. "However, all of that is in Mrs. Smith's hands. I'll find a way to get it. If I can't, I'll bankrupt the Smith family. Don't think you can inherit the family fortune once you're out of prison. You." Diana gritted her teeth. "Susan, I'm already like this. What more do you want?" Smiling, I stood up. "Oh, by the way, you're right. I was the one who arranged for you to be abducted." "You..." Before she could finish, she suddenly clutched her chest and curled up. I smiled as I watched her struggle. After about a minute, I rushed out in a panic. "Officer, she seems to be ill." When the police went in, Diana was already unconscious. She died on the way to the hospital. It was a sudden heart attack. The police asked me what had happened. With a sobbing voice, I said, "I told her that my parents had a car accident. And she suddenly became like this." The police didn't believe me. "What does your parents' accident have to do with her?" I shook my head. "I don't know either. But she's called my parents mom and dad since we were kids. The director, Uncle Bob, they all know about it. She's always been rather strange." Whether the police believed me or not, I left. She died of a heart attack. She hadn't been to the hospital for a check-up before, and no one knew she had a heart problem. I didn't have to take any responsibility. My birthday passed in a hurry, but it was the happiest day for me. I was so happy that I forgot to suppress the smile on my lips. Jack was driving. Suddenly, he asked me, "Did you do all of this?" I paused and looked at him sideways. He was driving seriously, and his voice was calm. "When you were kidnapped, what Diana and Steven said was really strange. About abduction, arson, Jack." I called his name. Instead of answering, I asked, "Do you have the courage to date me?" He didn't answer me. He dropped me off at home. I walked in without looking back, looking at the gifts all over the floor. I stepped on them without hesitation. "Jack, I don't need anyone's love because I don't trust anyone. Loving myself is enough." After hearing the story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.